I was holding the damn necklace in my hand when she walked in, tangled in her purse strap like it didn't mean a thing. A slim, gold chain with a little heart pendant. Not expensive, but delicate, new, and definitely not for me. I stared at it, numb, like my brain hadn't caught up yet. 33 years. 33 damn years of sharing a bed, raising kids, building a life, and now I'm standing in our hallway holding a stranger's thank you gift to my wife. She didn't notice me at first, just tossed her keys in the bowl, muttered something about traffic, and pulled off her heels like it was any other Wednesday. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My mouth had gone dry, and there was this static in my ears like I was underwater. She finally looked up and froze. Her eyes darted to the necklace, still dangling from my fingers. "Oh," she said. Just oh, like I'd found a lost sock or a grocery receipt. She reached out, but I didn't let go. I held it higher. "Is this yours?" I asked, my voice flat. She blinked fast, like she was deciding which version of the truth to tell. "Oh, yeah, I bought it for myself a few weeks ago. Forgot it was in there," she said, too fast, too smooth. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Her voice was rehearsed. And I've known this woman for over 3 decades. I know when she's lying. I just nodded. I didn't argue. Not yet. That night, while she showered, I sat in our kitchen and stared at the same table where we used to eat breakfast with our 3 kids, where we laughed, fought, made plans, cried. I stared at the necklace lying there in the center, now untangled, still warm from her skin. It smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. That wasn't ours. I didn't sleep. I waited, watched, collected pieces. The next day, I forgot my laptop charger and came home at lunch. She wasn't there. Her car was in the driveway. I checked the garage, empty. Checked the bedroom, empty. Bathroom, door cracked open, lights off. Then I heard it. The laugh. A man's voice, deep, smug, muffled through the wall of our guest room. The guest room. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't scream. I stepped back, walked outside, and sat in my car, heart pounding so loud I thought it would shatter my ribs. I didn't want to believe it. I needed it to be anything else. But then I saw them through the window, his arm around her, shirtless, her robe hanging open like it was his house now. And something inside me just shut off. I didn't confront her. Not that day. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I drove back to work, sat through meetings, nodded at people like I was still alive. But my brain, my soul, was already somewhere else. That night, she cooked lasagna. Acted normal. Asked me about my day, kissed me on the cheek like she hadn't just gutted 33 years of trust with her bare hands. I chewed my food. Swallowed it like cement. Smiled. She had no idea I'd already booked the vacation. A private island. White sand, turquoise water, total silence. She thought it was for our anniversary. She had no idea I'd changed the name on the ticket to her sister's. No idea that I'd planned the whole thing before I'd even seen them together. Because something deep in me, something primal, knew. And she damn sure didn't know that the divorce papers were already sitting in my briefcase. Not filed yet. Not signed. Just waiting. Waiting for the flight home. The next morning, she hummed in the kitchen. Hummed. Like a damn Disney character, flipping pancakes in that floral robe of hers, the same one he'd had his filthy hands under just 24 hours ago. The smell of syrup, butter, and betrayal filled the room. I sat at the table, coffee untouched, fingers wrapped too tightly around the mug, watching her float through the morning like she hadn't reduced our entire marriage to a goddamn pile of ashes. "You're quiet today," she said, turning to smile at me. "Everything okay?" I nodded. Just tired. A lie. But the irony burned in my throat. We were officially a housemate of lies now. She slid a plate in front of me, kissed my forehead, and went upstairs to get dressed. And as I stared down at those pancakes, I realized, this woman, this bitch, was going to pretend nothing happened. She was going to smile, kiss, play wife until the end of time, and expect me to eat it all like her damn breakfast. Except I'd already stopped pretending. I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. scrolling her texts. She hadn't changed her phone passcode, rookie mistake. I didn't even have to dig far. The top thread was labeled Airplane Baby with a red heart. Classy. Her last message. "I wish I could have stayed in your arms forever yesterday. You make me feel 20 again." His reply. "You're fire, baby." He doesn't deserve you. Let's run away. Run away? Run away? I wanted to smash the phone against the wall, but I didn't. I transferred the messages to my cloud backup, deleted the download log, and placed the phone back on her nightstand, screen down. She wouldn't even know I'd been there. Let her keep thinking I was blind. Let her hang herself with her own damn rope. By the time she came back down in jeans and a cardigan like nothing had happened, I'd already packed a suitcase in my head. Not for me, for her. But first, I had to finish setting the trap. We'd planned this anniversary trip for 6 months. She'd wanted a cruise. I offered her something better, a private island off Belize. No phone reception. No nosy friends. Just ocean, cocktails, and one hell of a reveal. What she didn't know was that I'd rerouted the reservation last week. Her name? Replaced with her sister's Ava. A woman who, unlike Sarah, had actually stayed loyal to her husband. A woman I hadn't spoken to properly in 10 years, but who had always looked at me like she wanted to. A woman who, after hearing the real reason for the invitation, said 6 words. I always wondered when you'd call. Now I had 2 plane tickets printed and folded in my safe. One for me, one for Ava. And Sarah? She'd get her ticket too. Just not the kind she could pack for. That night, as she climbed into bed beside me, she turned, tucked herself under my arm, and whispered, "You've been so good to me lately. I don't deserve you." No, she didn't. I stared at the ceiling, silent. She shifted, then rested her hand on my chest, her wedding ring cold against my skin. "I love you, Bill." I nearly laughed. The audacity. The sheer, foul audacity. But I just kissed her forehead and whispered back, "I know." Because I wanted her to sleep peacefully. I wanted her rested. Because soon, very soon, she'd wake up to a version of me she'd never met before. 3 days before our anniversary trip, she told me she needed a girls' night out. This time, she was bolder, didn't even bother pretending to be nervous. Hair done up like she was 25 again, red lipstick I hadn't seen in years, heels that made her hips swing like she was headed to a casting call, not dinner with the girls. She strutted through the bedroom, checking herself in the mirror like I wasn't even sitting on the bed right there watching her. "You sure you'll be okay without me tonight?" she said with a fake pout, adjusting her earrings. "I'll manage," I replied, flipping a page in my book I wasn't reading. She leaned down, kissed me on the cheek, and whispered, "You're the best husband in the world." She always overdid it before her little escapades. Guilt must have made her corny. As soon as the front door closed behind her, I dropped the book, stood, and opened the closet. Top shelf, back left corner, our fireproof lockbox. Inside, behind birth certificates and an old engagement photo, were the plane tickets. I took them out, held them in my hands for a long time. 2 first-class tickets. One with my name. The other? Ava McMillan. Her younger sister. The one Sarah used to call it serial man collector. The one who never married, never settled down, never apologized for being single and dangerous. Sarah used to talk about her like she was a curse. I'd never paid it much mind before. But I do now. Because Ava knows everything. I told her the truth. About the necklace. About the texts. About the sounds through the guest room wall. She listened quietly on the phone for 10 minutes, didn't interrupt once. Then she said, "If you want to hit her where it hurts, I'm in." And just like that, the game began. But I wasn't done setting the stage. That night, while Sarah was out with the girls, I drove across town to a little restaurant with dim lights and velvet booths. Ava was already there, sipping a glass of wine, looking like the kind of woman who made men regret marrying safe. "Still sure about this?" I asked as I sat down. She smiled. "You're not the only one she betrayed." That made me pause. "What do you mean?" She leaned in, lowered her voice. "She slept with my fiancé, the one I was going to marry 10 years ago." I blinked. "She never told you?" Ava's voice was light, but her eyes burned. Guess the affair bug bit her early. I felt sick. But it was a clarifying kind of sickness, one that wiped away all the what-ifs and maybes. This woman, this wife, had been a snake long before I ever noticed the fangs. Ava continued. "She thought I didn't know. But I've been waiting for the right moment to pay her back." I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in decades, I saw her not as Sarah's wild little sister, but as a mirror cracked in the same places, carrying the same scars. I raised my glass. "To payback." She clinked hers against mine. Into clean exits. We laughed, but there was steel under it. That night, I returned home before Sarah. Her car pulled in around midnight. I was in bed, lights off, pretending to sleep. She crept in, stripped quietly, and slid under the covers. I heard her breath catch when she noticed my back was turned. Good. Let her feel it. The silence. The shift. Let her wonder. Because the flight leaves in 72 hours. And she still has no idea who's going with me. The morning after her girls' night, she brought me breakfast in bed. That hadn't happened in over 15 years. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, orange juice, overcooked, cold, and desperate. She smiled like a damn game show host, eyes wide and innocent, acting like nothing was rotting under the floorboards of our marriage. I just wanted to do something nice, she said, setting the tray down. You've been so sweet lately. I feel like I haven't told you enough how much I appreciate you. I looked her straight in the eye. You're right. You haven't. She blinked. A flicker of guilt twitched across her face, but she forced it down with another smile and sat beside me, brushing imaginary lint from my shoulder. You're the only man I've ever really loved, she whispered. I almost choked on the eggs. It's impressive, really. The way some people can lie like they breathe. No shame. No hesitation. Just raw, shameless fiction pouring out like a damn faucet. Her lover probably told her the same thing the night before while she moaned into our guest room pillows. I finished the breakfast. Every bite. Didn't say thank you. Because I knew what she was doing. She could feel me slipping. The weight of what she'd done was starting to tighten around her neck, and instead of owning it, she thought she could smother it with syrup and smiles. But I wasn't planning on slipping. I was preparing for impact. Later that afternoon, I visited my lawyer. He'd handled my mother's estate years ago, sharp guy, discreet, a real hammer when he needed to be. I handed him a folder. Texts, timestamps, photos, the whole catalog of betrayal. Everything neatly documented, tabbed, and printed. He flipped through the first few pages, raised his eyebrows, and gave a low whistle. She's screwed. Not yet, I said, leaning back. But she will be. I want to time it right. He looked up. How right? I smiled. The day we land back from our anniversary trip. He paused. You're taking her on a trip? With this? He waved the folder. No, I said. I'm going. She's getting the illusion. And the paperwork when we return. His eyes sparkled. That's cold. That's fair, I replied. She had her fun. I'll have mine. He nodded. You want it to hurt? No, I said, standing up, buttoning my coat. I want it to echo. When I got home, she was waiting with a new dress on tight, black, low cut. Thought I'd surprise you. Maybe we could have a little date night? Just us. I stared at her for a long second, then said, let me shower first. She smiled like she'd won something. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. Tried to remember the man I used to be. The husband. The provider. The idiot. Then I did something I hadn't done in over 2 decades. I shaved clean. Took my time. Cut myself once. Didn't flinch. When I walked back into the bedroom, she looked stunned. Well, you look different. I nodded. I feel different. And I meant it. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in performance. I played the doting husband, the eager traveler, the forgiving fool. She relaxed. Started talking about sunsets, romantic dinners, hot tubs on the beach. She asked if we could renew our vows while we were there. I told her maybe. She cried when I said that. Said it meant the world to her. That she'd made mistakes, but always loved me. Mistakes. What a gentle little word for what she'd done. I held her hand that night in bed, and she fell asleep against my chest. And while she snored softly into my shirt, I laid there wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, hearing Ava's voice in my head from 2 nights ago. When we walk through that gate together, her soul will shatter. You know that, right? I smiled in the dark. I was counting on it. The morning of our flight, she was giddy. Like a teenager sneaking out to meet some forbidden crush. She practically bounced around the bedroom, stuffing bikinis into her luggage like we were heading to some second honeymoon. Her mood made me sick, but I stayed calm, focused, patient. I'd waited weeks for this moment, months, really, if I'm being honest. And now, every second was part of the finale. She held up a white linen dress and turned to me, beaming. Do you like this one? I figured it'd be nice for dinner on the beach. I nodded. You'll look perfect in it." She grinned and kept packing. "I'm so excited for this trip, Bill. I feel like we really needed it, you know? A fresh start. Just us. Like the old days. The old days." I thought of the early years, 3 kids, 2 jobs, 1 mortgage, and no sleep. I remembered the nights we both cried quietly in the dark because we couldn't afford a new dryer or because one of the kids had a fever and we didn't have insurance. I remembered the nights I walked the baby around the living room while she rested, and the first time she ever said, "I couldn't do this without you." And now here we were. 2 tickets, 1 lie, and a betrayal that had burned through 33 years like fire through paper. She asked me to take her photo at the airport. Standing by the window, sunset behind her, lips pursed just right. "For the memories," she said, handing me her phone. I took it, smiled, framed her perfectly, then took another one, and another. One for her, and one for me. She didn't notice that I turned my own phone around and took a quick video. Just her voice, her smile, her excitement, proof of what she thought was coming. We boarded early. She nestled into her seat, champagne in hand, snuggled up next to me like it was our honeymoon all over again. She looked out the window and whispered, "I'm so glad we're doing this. I really think we're going to be okay." I turned to her, studied her face. It was still beautiful. Older, sure, but still beautiful. If I hadn't known the things I did, I might have believed her. But I did know. And knowing ruins everything. Halfway through the flight, she drifted off. I looked at her hand on the armrest, ring still on, nail polish chipped. She didn't even know she was holding a countdown. When we landed, the sky was pink-orange. Warm wind, ocean salt, the smell of vacation in the air. I handed the cab driver the address. She leaned on my shoulder, sleepy from the flight, mumbling about a massage, maybe a bubble bath tonight. The resort was tucked away, private, almost too quiet. Just as I'd planned. We stepped into the open-air lobby, where soft music played and water ran down a sculpted stone wall. The concierge greeted us. "Mr. McMillan, welcome back." Her head snapped toward me. I smiled. "They've upgraded our suite," I said smoothly, passing over the confirmation. She smiled too, still unaware. Until the concierge added, "And Ms. Ava checked in about an hour ago. She asked to be notified once you arrived." Silence. She turned her head so fast I thought she'd snap something. "What did he say?" I turned to her. Calm. Steady. "I invited Ava." Her face twisted. "Why?" "Because I thought you'd enjoy a few days to reflect," I said, picking up the room key. "Alone." I didn't wait for her reply. I left her standing there in the middle of the lobby, stunned, mouth open, clutching her suitcase like it could save her from drowning. When I walked into the suite, Ava was already on the balcony, drink in hand, dress fluttering in the breeze. She looked over her shoulder and smiled. Right on time. I joined her, slipped off my jacket, and exhaled for the first time in weeks. Behind me, somewhere back in that lobby, I knew Sarah was exploding. And the best part? She hadn't even seen the envelope yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, God, no. That emotion was long dead. I didn't sleep because I was too damn alive. After years of feeling like a shadow in my own marriage, like a background extra in the life I'd built, that night I felt every beat of my heart like a drum under my ribs. I laid on the cool sheets of that suite beside Ava, the sliding door cracked open, letting the sound of the waves roll in like applause. Her breathing was soft, calm. She didn't ask questions. Didn't pry. She just let me be. I hadn't touched her. Not yet. This wasn't about that. This was about her, Sarah, finally getting served a taste of her own poison. I knew she didn't go to her room. She was downstairs for hours. I heard the knocks. The calls at the front desk. The hushed, frantic voice demanding to know what was going on. She didn't know what to do with herself without control, without the script, without her fake version of our story to hide behind. At 6 a.m, just as the sun started bleeding over the water, I stood alone on the balcony, coffee in hand, and watched her storm down the beach. Hair wild, flip-flops in one hand, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes bloodshot. She saw me. I didn't move. She marched across the sand, yelling my name, furious, already composing whatever twisted lie she thought would make this all go away. But before she could get close, resort security intercepted her. She wasn't even a guest in her room anymore. I watched her argue, hands flailing. pointing at me, screaming like a banshee across the surf. I just raised my coffee mug. Cheers. Later that day, after Ava and I returned from a chartered boat ride through the reefs, there was an envelope on the suite table, hand-delivered by the hotel manager. Inside were a handful of printed messages. My lawyer had followed through. The first was a screenshot from the guest room camera. I'd installed it weeks ago, hidden inside a decorative smoke detector. She never saw it, just like she never saw the tiny blinking red light the night she brought him into our home again, into that room. There they were, half-dressed, laughing, his hand on her thigh like he owned her. The next page? A transcript. The audio wasn't perfect, but the gist was clear. He's such a damn puppy. If he ever found out, he'd probably write me a check and thank me for the heartbreak. Her voice. Her words. Right there. She laughed about me. Bragged about how easy it was to lie to my face. About how she was playing house with a man who stopped being a man 10 years ago. 10 years. That's how long I'd been dead to her, apparently. Still showing up. Still paying the bills. Still fixing the fuses and making the Sunday coffee. And to her, I was just a body. A routine. I walked into the bathroom, stared at my reflection again. I didn't see a broken man. I saw a man reborn in flames. That evening, the front desk informed me that Sarah had checked out. No message. No note. Nothing. Just gone. Perfect. Because waiting for her in her inbox, scheduled to hit right as her return flight landed, was the final piece. An email from me. Subject line, the truth you buried, now dug up. Inside, links, screenshots, documents, a digital copy of the divorce papers, already filed, and a brief message. No ceremony. No more pretending. I've taken back my life and left the scraps for you. Enjoy. That night, Ava and I watched the sun sink into the ocean like a final period on a sentence that had dragged on too long. She looked at me, her voice low. So, what now? I didn't answer right away. Just took a long sip of wine. Then said, now we see what silence feels like, after 33 years of noise. And damn, it was beautiful. 3 days passed. 3 days without her voice poisoning the air. No fake apologies. No crocodile tears. No shrieking guilt trips or manipulative little touches to reel me back in. Just peace. For the first time in over 3 decades, I woke up without a weight on my chest that had grown so gradually I didn't even notice it was killing me. Ava and I stayed on the island. And no, before your mind jumps where it wants to, I still hadn't touched her. This wasn't some sleazy rebound fantasy. Ava wasn't a prize. She was a mirror, a witness, a scar in the same shape as mine. And I wasn't looking for fireworks or passion. Not yet. I just wanted stillness. Honesty. A companion who didn't lie like she breathed. And she gave me that. The resort staff adored her. Called her La Sirena, the mermaid, always smiling, always barefoot, always humming to herself as she walked down to the water. And me? They called me El Caballero Silencioso, the quiet gentleman. Ironic, considering the hell I just walked out of. But even paradise has cracks. On the 4th morning, I checked my email. One new message. Subject, you've made your point. From her. I didn't open it. Not right away. I just stared at the subject line for 10 full minutes, fingers hovering over the trackpad, waiting to see if the words would change. If somehow, they'd morph into an apology. A confession. A breakdown. But no. You've made your point. As if this was all a game. As if I'd ruined her life just to prove a petty little lesson. Not because she'd slept with another man under my roof. Not because she'd lied to my face for God knows how long. Not because she'd laughed about me behind my back like I was some aging, clueless joke. No. I made my point because she'd shattered something sacred. And then mocked the ruins. Eventually, I opened it. Bill. I know you think what you did was clever. Hurting me on purpose. Humiliating me. Ava? Really? You made your point. I'm not proud of what happened, and I never claimed to be perfect. But you didn't need to destroy everything like this. I hope you're happy. Because I'm not crawling back. That last line, I'm not crawling back. I laughed. Because that was exactly what she'd been doing since the second the plane touched down and she realized she was no longer holding the script. She hated not having control. Hated being the one who got dumped. Who got left. She thought she'd cry, confess, seduce, maybe even rage, and I'd come crawling to her. But the roles had flipped, and she didn't know how to function without the leash in her hand. That night, I sat on the balcony again. Same spot, same chair. Ava brought me a whiskey, no words, just the warmth of someone who didn't need to perform. Was it enough? She asked finally. I thought for a moment, then said, it wasn't about enough. It was about final. She nodded. So it's over. I stared out at the ocean. No, I said slowly. It's just begun. Because what Sarah didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that I hadn't just sent her the divorce papers. I'd sent them to her employer, too. She worked in corporate HR for a major family values company, the kind that makes their employees sign personal conduct clauses. She was the face of marriage seminars, the one who gave lectures on ethics of all things. Her lover? Also an employee. And their little fling? Captured, documented, cross-referenced with company travel logs and expense reports. I didn't just take back my life. I pulled the curtain down on hers. And the next morning, she'd wake up to an inbox full of very different emails. And for the first time in years, she would be the one trying to explain herself. The fallout hit like a brick to the teeth. 2 days after her last pathetic little email, my phone buzzed while Ava and I were eating grilled lobster on the beach. I almost ignored it. Vacation mode had rewired my brain to not flinch at every ping, but the name on the caller ID made me pause. David Russo, Sarah's boss. I let it ring twice more, then picked up, walking down to the surf so Ava wouldn't hear. Bill. His voice was sharp, clipped. Corporate panic disguised under a layer of forced professionalism. Yes. This is David Russo, VP of Talent Strategy at N. I know who you are. He cleared his throat. I'm calling because, well, frankly, this is highly irregular. We received some materials from you earlier this week concerning one of our senior HR executives. I didn't respond. Let him stew in the silence. I'll be honest. If even half of what you submitted is accurate, we're looking at a serious breach of conduct, possibly more. It's all accurate. Another pause. The internal review team was already flagged due to an anonymous tip earlier this month. But what you've provided, this paints a very detailed picture. I could hear him choosing his words like he was walking barefoot across glass. What do you want, Mr. McMillan? Is this a lawsuit? Are you seeking damages? I let the waves crash for a second before I answered. No, I'm not suing. He sounded confused. Then why? I finally said it, slow and clear. Because your company paraded her around as the voice of morality. Because she preached integrity while screwing a subordinate in her husband's house. Because I lost 3 decades of my life to a woman who smiles while she stabs you. I just thought you'd like to know who she really is. Silence. Then, finally, you understand we'll need to conduct a formal investigation. If what you're saying proves true, she'll be terminated. I'm counting on it. I hung up before he could say another word. When I walked back up the sand, Ava looked up from her wine and raised an eyebrow. That the storm? I nodded. First drop. She didn't ask for details. She just handed me a second glass and clinked it against mine. To the truth, she said. I smiled. To freedom. But it wasn't over. That night, while Ava showered, I opened my email again. This time, there were 5 new messages. 2 from Sarah, 1 from her lawyer, 1 from her sister, not Ava, and 1 from her son. Our son, Michael. That one stopped me cold. My finger hovered over the screen. Michael was the youngest. 23. Quiet. Sharp. Had my eyes, her stubborn jaw. Still finishing grad school. I hadn't told him. Not yet. Not any of them. I wanted the divorce finalized before I spoke to the kids. I didn't want her poison in their ears before they heard it from me. But he'd found out. I opened the email. Dad, I just talked to Mom. She's losing it. Said you ambushed her, blindsided her, humiliated her. I told her she was lucky you didn't do worse. Then she started crying and told me everything. Or tried to. You don't have to say anything if you're not ready. Just know I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you. Michael. I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. But damn, I came close. Because after everything, after betrayal, lies, humiliation, that right there was worth more than all the revenge I could dish out. A son who saw through her. A son who chose me. The next day, The bomb finally dropped. News leaked. Someone in her office forwarded a memo. Termination, effective immediately, for cause. Internal ethics review. Conduct unbecoming. Breach of supervisory boundaries. Her LinkedIn went dark. Company website scrubbed. The woman who used to stand in front of hundreds, lecturing about honor and leadership, was now just a deleted email address in someone's HR archive. Ava and I sat at the edge of the infinity pool, watching the sun melt into the horizon. She turned to me. "You did it." I nodded. But the truth? It wasn't about doing it. It was about surviving it. Because when a person gives you 33 years of a life laced with quiet poison, the revenge isn't the win. Living better without them? That's the real justice. And I had just begun. The night before our flight home, I stood barefoot in the dark, waves kissing my ankles, the moon hanging like a pale, silent witness overhead. Ava was asleep upstairs. The sweet lights were off. The island had gone quiet. And for the first time since this all started, I felt it, the quiet ache in my chest where the rage had burned out. Not gone, not healed, but quieter. I watched the tide roll in, then back out again, over and over. It reminded me of her voice, Sarah's voice, how it used to soothe me before I realized it was a weapon. She didn't yell when she lied. She didn't scream when she betrayed. No, Sarah hurt you gently. Soft hands, soft words, soft steps, until one day you looked down and realized your soul had 1,000 tiny cuts and she was holding the knife with a smile. I still remembered the first time I saw her. Spring of '89. She was wearing a blue sundress and arguing with a soda machine that ate her quarter. I gave her mine. She never stopped talking after that. 33 years. 3 kids. 4 houses. 1 death. My mother. She held my hand at the funeral. She held his hand in our guest room. And now? Now she was a hollow story I no longer wanted to reread. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail. No caller ID. But I knew the voice the second I hit play. "Bill, please. I lost my job. They froze my accounts. Do you have any idea what you've done? I'm ruined." And Ava? My sister. A sharp inhale. Then the panic broke through the performance. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. The kids won't talk to me. They all think I'm some monster because of you. You always said you loved me. Why would you destroy me like this? Why?" The voice cracked. Then silence. Then, "Please, Bill, just call me back." Click. I didn't call her back. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, flagged it, then deleted it from my phone. I wasn't going to let her tears crawl back in. I wasn't going to let her wrap me in guilt just because the blade turned back on her. You see, Sarah thought she had time. She thought she could have her little adventure, and I'd still be waiting at the finish line. She thought I was safe, predictable, forgiving. But grief changes a man. Not the grief of losing a person. The grief of realizing the person you loved never actually existed. At the airport, Ava held my hand as we walked to our gate. No rings. No promises. Just a silent agreement. We survived. We didn't talk about what came next. I wasn't ready for next. I was still unpacking the before. Right before we boarded, I got a text. "Sarah, you win. You've taken everything. Are you happy now?" I stared at it. My thumb hovered. Not to reply, but to delete. But then, I typed one sentence. "I didn't take anything. You threw it away." Then I turned off my phone. On the flight back, I stared out the window. The clouds spread below like white armor. And I finally let myself smile. Not because I was happy, but because for the first time in 33 years, I wasn't hers anymore. Back in the States, reality came at me sideways. Not because I wasn't ready, but because she wasn't done. Sarah had always been the kind of woman who couldn't stand losing. And now that she'd lost the image, the job, the narrative, she was clawing for control like a drowning animal. Within 48 hours of landing, she'd sent letters. Physical letters. Handwritten. Sloppy cursive, ink smudged, like she'd cried over them or wanted me to think she had. Pages of blame. Apologies tangled in self-pity. Accusations dressed up as vulnerability. "You broke me, Bill. You never saw me. I made a mistake, but you turned it into a war." I didn't respond. Not a word. Not a call. Not a breath. Instead, I focused on the kids. Michael already knew. But now the other 2, Rebecca and Daniel, deserved the truth. Not some polished lie fed to them by a woman who'd spent the last decade perfecting masks. So I invited them over. No drama, just a dinner. I cooked. They sat, quiet, nervous. Sarah had reached out to all of them already. Of course she had. Spun some half-truths and watered-down confessions about infidelity during a rough patch. She didn't mention who, how long, or the video. So I gave them the real version. No yelling, no cursing, just the truth. Clean, honest, surgical. I told them how I found out. What I saw, what I heard, what she did. I even showed them one still frame from the camera footage. Nothing explicit, just enough to break the spell. And when I finished, none of them said a word for a full minute. Then Rebecca whispered, "How long have you known?" "Long enough," I said. "But not as long as she's been lying." Daniel stood up first. "I want to punch something," he said, shaking his head, blinking fast. I defended her to my wife. I told her people make mistakes. Jesus. Michael said nothing, just leaned forward, elbows on the table, staring at the spot his mother used to sit during holidays. Rebecca finally spoke again, her voice low. "What are you going to do now?" I answered without hesitation. "Live." The moment that word left my mouth, I felt something shift, as if my whole chest exhaled after years of holding its breath. The kids didn't argue. They didn't ask for reconciliation. They didn't try to defend her. They just knew. They saw it now. And Sarah? She was alone. Worse than alone, exposed. Unwanted. Unrecognizable, even to her own children. After they left, I sat in the living room. Ava texted me. "How did it go?" I replied. "The story's ending." Finally, she sent back a photo. 2 wine glasses. A fire pit. A chair beside her. Empty, waiting. I didn't respond. I just stood up, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. It was raining when I pulled into Ava's driveway. Not the kind of soft, cinematic rain you see in movies where 2 lovers kiss in the street. No, this was sharp, ugly rain. Wind whipping hard enough to rattle the car windows. Thunder cracking like the sky was furious. And still, I stepped out without an umbrella, walked through the storm like it owed me something. She opened the door before I knocked. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. She just stepped aside, and I walked in, soaked to the bone, heart thudding like I'd stolen it from someone else. We didn't talk for a long time. She poured me a drink, sat across from me in silence. The fire crackled between us, fighting off the cold I'd carried in. I looked around. It wasn't anything like Sarah's house. Nothing polished. Nothing curated for Instagram. Just shelves of old paperbacks, mismatched cushions, a lamp with a crack down its base. Real. Finally, I said it. "I didn't come here for comfort." Ava tilted her head. "I didn't expect you to. I didn't come here to forget Sarah." "Good. You shouldn't." I nodded slowly. "I came because after everything, after the lies, the silence, the war, I don't want to be alone in this new life." Her eyes didn't flinch. "Then stay." It was that simple. No performance. No seduction. Just the raw, open truth of 2 people who'd had their illusions torn out of them by the same hand. I stayed. We didn't kiss. Didn't fall into bed like teenagers. We just sat there. Me drying off in front of her fireplace, her legs folded up under her, both of us quietly rebuilding our trust in the human race, brick by brick. The next morning, Sarah showed up at my house. Ava and I weren't there, of course. But my neighbor, a good man named Terry who'd mowed my lawn while I was overseas, saw her pacing the porch, banging on the door like a madwoman. She looked awful. Makeup smeared, hair tangled, something clutched in her hand. Later, I found out it was a letter. She slid it under the door. I didn't read it. I burned it. That same day, she called every one of our kids. All 3. And every single one of them, let it ring. No one answered. She left voicemails I'll never hear. Long, rambling ones from what I'm told. Blaming me, blaming Ava, blaming the system. She even accused Michael of being brainwashed. Brainwashed. Her own son. The one who used to draw her birthday cards with crayon hearts and call her his queen. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't even pity her. I just didn't feel her anymore. Not in the way you miss someone, but in the way you forget they were ever part of your skin. That night, I stood on Ava's porch, warm coffee in hand, watching the stars blink through the trees. She stepped beside me, wrapped a blanket over both our shoulders. "What now?" she asked. I looked out over the quiet neighborhood, the wind rustling just enough to feel alive. "Now," I said, "I rebuild. But this time, I choose every single brick myself." She leaned her head on my shoulder. And for once, I didn't feel like something was missing. 6 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. No courtroom scene. No screaming matches. No last-minute pleas. She signed everything. Didn't contest a thing. She didn't even show up. Her lawyer sent a cold, quiet email confirming the agreement. Assets divided. House sold. Retirement account split. No alimony. No statement. Just a signature on a line, and the ghost of 33 years dissolved in legal ink. I stared at that signed form for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Not anymore. It was a strange kind of relief. Like waking up and realizing the nightmare had ended hours ago, but your body is just now catching up. I didn't cry. Not even once. Instead, I packed the last box from the storage unit, loaded it into the back of my truck, and dropped the key off at the leasing office. That chapter closed. No more photos tucked away in drawers. No more wedding china I hadn't touched in decades. No more echoes of we. Just me. And maybe, one day, we again. But on different terms. On my terms. Ava was waiting at her place, barefoot in the yard, sleeves rolled up, dirt on her hands from replanting the rose bushes that had died last winter. She didn't run to me. Didn't ask how it went. She just looked at my face, wiped her hands on her jeans, and nodded. She knew. Later that evening, we sat on her porch swing, watching the sky dim into soft purple. I handed her an envelope. Inside 2 plane tickets. Back to the island. Same resort. Same suite. But this time, no secrets. She looked at them, then at me, and raised an eyebrow. Reckless. I shrugged. Maybe. But the last time we were there, it was about ending something. And this time, I said, it's about beginning something. She didn't say anything for a while. Just leaned her head on my shoulder, her breath slow and steady. And in that silence, I finally found something I hadn't had in years. Peace. Not just freedom from her, Sarah, but freedom from the ache of needing answers that never came. Freedom from the cycle of trying to fix something that was designed to stay broken. I gave her decades. The best of my strength, my youth, my loyalty. And she repaid it with a smirk and a lie wrapped in perfume. But I didn't end her. She ended herself. All I did was walk away with the truth in one hand and my dignity in the other. To anyone reading this, any man who's sitting in the middle of his own quiet hell, wondering if the knot in your chest is just life or something deeper, listen. Trust your gut. Collect your evidence. Don't yell. Don't beg. Don't explode. Build the exit quietly. And when you walk out, don't look back for smoke. You'll miss the sunrise. I did. And it was worth every damn second of the storm.